said to my guy, right? I said,
Hey, wait. Before you finish that, have you seen Tuck? I haven't seen him lately. Is he doing okay?
yeah, man, he's fine. He's working hard. He's keeping up for the next stuff of Battlebound. Come on, he's right inside. I'm sure
All
you'll
right.
see. Oh, thank you. See? Told you. Working hard.
I work hard for the money. So hard for the money. Oh yeah, something money. Come on, give me lots of honey.
Come on, let's go play Magic.
I've been playing Battletech for almost a quarter of a century, and I want to bring the tabletop experience to as many people as possible. I want to have a great game with you. I'm Tuck Davian, and we're out on the open road, looking for players with guts to join us and feel the DACA on Battlebound.
Alright, Battletech fans, we want to welcome you to our Encore episode shot right here in our fat palatial mansion at the Tiger and Bishop Studios.
That's right. And today, we're going to start us off with something else we haven't done in quite some time. We're going to do an unboxing.
That's right, we got right here from Jeremiah Fletcher. This is a fan that sent us this. He works for Timber Ton Woodwork. It's his own company, and he sent us this little treat, and we wanted to make something kind of special out of it for all those local creators out there who don't get a chance to get their stuff spotlighted all that often. So we're going to unbox this for you, and then we're going to hit the episode. So what do you say? You want to get started?
Sounds great.
All right, let's do this, gimmick. What does it smell like? Does it smell like wood?
Somebody's got wood.
I was going to say, does it give you wood? A little teak?
But
Mahogany?
redwood. What do we got?
Alright, that's all that's in there, so let's unwrap that sucker.
Well, it's heavy.
What are we gonna put it? This is heavy. I got a little hobby knife here. If you need to cut it.
You're going to need that. Because there's tape.
Just be able to tear it open now.
There you go. Hey, look, redwood.
Alright.
Alright, so let's take a look here. Ooh,
Oh man, that is super cool.
that's hot.
Oh, it's all glossy and such.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
That's
fantastic.
beautiful.
Show it, yeah.
So we got that right there.
We can just hang this up over the front door as far as I'm concerned on the inside here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, either that or we can hang it up, you know, somewhere in this little area where we can all see it.
Oh, absolutely. This is gorgeous. This is really great work. So cool.
I'm going to put their info here on the screen for you, but all the letters, they're not depressed, like it's all just super glossy. It's got a little bit of a ridge here, it's fantastic, and you got some color there. Man, yeah, this is way cooler than I had imagined it would be. I thought, oh, you know, it'll be something pretty neat, but yeah, there was clearly a lot of effort put into this thing, and I gotta say, I'm super grateful for it, so, wow. Have we made it?
This is something I never expected.
No,
so,
not at all.
Sir, thank you. This is beautiful.
Fantastic, man. You know, we kicked it off pretty well here, so I gotta say, we're going into the Iron Man Challenge here coming up shortly, and we've got a great game. One of the big, not complaints, but I would say suggestions that we had from our last episode of the first season was, I wish you'd had a longer battle report. Well, I think I gave it to them this time. We got 30 minutes of non-stop mech combat action coming for you in the battle report segment because we're doing the Iron Man Challenge. It's gonna be pretty cool. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna do the standard gimmick, how we usually do. And now it's time for this episode's featured player. Alright, Battletech fans, I got a little bit of a special treat for you this time. We're going to have an in-house interview. I got one of our patrons right here. This is Eric. Say hello to the folks at home.
Hello.
And see, Eric's been a patron since pretty much day one, and he lives here in the area. I believe it was your buddy Ronald that had put you in touch with me and said, hey, where'd you move from again?
Originally South Carolina,
Oh, okay.
and then came back to Oklahoma.
Okay. And Ronald Baker, he said, hey, you know, my buddy Eric's moving up there, and if you could help him get some games in. And I was just like, oh, heck yeah, man, you know, why not? So, you know, today we're going to do a little bit of something different. We're going to do the Iron Man Challenge again. I don't know if you saw that video from last time around, but I was told by Pat Saul that we didn't do it right last time. So I was told, basically you have to pick a mech of 2,000 battle value or less with your pilot taken into account, and then you have to fight not every weight class, you got to fight every single weight, 20, 25, 30, 35, and so on and so forth. And so I thought, man, okay, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to take the BNC 3E Banshee. I'm going to prove my point that this thing doesn't suck. So that's what we got planned for you today, but I want to get a little bit of details from you. I kind of want to delve into what brings you to the table here today, besides just, you know, hanging out in our house and playing.
Right.
This is the Tiger and Bishop studio. So what got you into Battletech? Tell me that story.
Originally for me, it was the lore.
Oh, nice.
Reading the novels.
Sure.
My first novel was the Legend of the Jade Phoenix trilogy.
Okay, yeah, as a matter of fact, that was my first too. I read Falcon Guard before I read anything else.
Because someone actually handed me the combination book that had all three of them together.
Oh, nice. Okay, sure. I know what you're talking
So
about.
that's where it started for me, and then I just started collecting books like crazy. It's like Gardner's bookstore right here in Tulsa.
Oh, yeah.
It was right where I got most of my collection to start out.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, of course, I'm House Karita. That's hands down. That's been my favorite because, of course, I love dragons, I love samurai, Japanese history. That's a whole big thing for me. Even though I served in a Davion unit,
Yeah.
which is
You'd get along real well with Captain Ed. He really likes all that stuff, that samurai stuff, and he and I have been talking about that a little bit. So.
and then if you look at the mercenaries, even for me, my favorite mercenary unit was the Blackthorns.
Oh man, yeah, you don't get too many of those. I love the Blackthorns, and Taylor loves the Blackthorns too. Jeremiah Rose is like his guy. It's his Rhonda Snord to me. So.
Yep.
So is it safe then to say that you did a lot of reading before you ever played a game of tabletop?
Oh yes, it was reading, and then it was the video games. Because for me, it was the computer games.
Mech Warrior 2?
I started with the Mech Commander series.
Oh, okay, cool.
I also played a little bit of the. I'm trying to remember which one it was. The Wolf versus Falcon one.
That was Mech Warrior 2.
Mech Warrior 2.
Yeah.
Played that one as well, and then it progressed up the whole Mech Warrior series, and eventually MWO,
Yep.
where I played that exclusively with Ron in his unit, the 502nd Panzer Regiment. That I know you have seen the logo of before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then now I play Mech Warrior 5, HGS Battletech,
Sure.
and eventually I got into the tabletop. My first tabletop game was with Ron and one of our other unit members. We all got together that way.
Oh, right on. So when you came down here and you played with us in the
That
store.
was only my second game.
Oh wow, that was your second game. So we almost popped you, Jerry. we missed it by that much. So okay, and that having been your second game, the next question I want to ask you is, what brings you back? Like, what makes you say, okay, well, I did this a couple of times and that was cool in the gang, but I want to do this again. Like, where is that hook that just brings you back?
I just absolutely love. Basically, it gives me a chance to recreate the lore on the tabletop.
I love that. We had a, not too long ago, I think it was about this time last year, we actually played the Last Stand of the Black Watch. We played for like 10 hours. We didn't even get close to finishing that game. But we did that down at Dice Addiction. So, okay, so I usually ask what kind of memories do you have that you'll just never forget, but if you haven't been playing the tabletop that long, you can talk to me about the video games and stuff like that. Have you ever had one of those moments playing HBS Battletech or Mech Warrior Online, Mech Warrior 5, where you're like, oh wow, that was just insane that happened, I can't believe it, and that'll never happen, I'll never be able to repeat that action? Or did you ever have anything like that?
For me, it was sitting back in my Highlander for the first time, because that's one of my favorite mechs of all time.
Gotta love the Highland.
The one with the Gauss rifle, the HGN 732, and it's like the first time I actually took down 3 or 4 mechs. It's like, I actually can play this game? I actually know what I'm doing now?
Right?
Because before I was sitting in the Archer, the Catapult,
Sure.
sitting there as the LRM person. It's like, okay. I start seeing the damage numbers go up, I see a few kills, it's like, okay. Then it's like, you know what? Time to bring out the big dog, see how I can do with it.
Sure.
Because what hooked me with that mech was Rhonda Snort.
Oh God, I love Rhonda. Oh man, yeah. See, she had that Highlander, and then my favorite is the Shadowhawk, where it says Elvis is king, like with the big heart, you know, right on it. And Rhonda Snort is just one of my absolute favorites. I love that. So that's totally cool. That's kind of a kindred spirit there.
Also, with HBS, it's like, I love the idea of being able to build your own unit.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That's why I also play Mega Mech quite often as well. That's where I get more of my campaign type experience until I can actually start getting into a campaign on the tabletop.
Sure. All right, so I know that you're behind the Clan Invasion Kickstarter, right?
Oh yeah.
You went ahead and got in on that. Okay, great. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask people, is just because I love to get that perspective from the man on the street kind of thing. You haven't been playing tabletop for that long, but you've been on the ride with Battletech, you know, since the mid '90s when Mech Commander and all those came out. So you've seen the rise, and you've seen the valleys, and you've seen the rise again. So I got to get your opinion. Like, what do you feel like this whole renaissance is like that we're going through now with Battletech? Do you think we're going to hit that peak that we had in the mid to late '90s, where it was Battletech at every game store within driving distance, or will it get close to that and we should just be happy? Like, where do you think it's going?
To me, I think it's going up again. Because I know there were the plateaus for a while. I know there's been the changes over the years. It's like, what I think it needs to be done is, you got to see the demo team get out there again.
Oh yeah, sure.
People like you, people like Ron, get into those game stores. Introduce it to them again. Because a lot of the game stores probably think all they play is 40K.
Right.
Warhammer or stuff like that. They think it's just a dead thing. Some of them don't even know there was a retail part of the Kickstarter.
Right.
So it's like, you got to get the people who love the game into those stores.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I know you previewed this on Patreon, but we're doing that series now on how to grow the hobby of Battletech once the stores reopen again and the new lockdowns get rescinded, that we're able to go out back and get back to the brick and mortar stores. And we've got this series going on about how best to grow that hobby, and it's going to be a 3-parter. I'm going to put that out in the Space Lanes here shortly. I've got the first 2 done. I got to get the 3rd one done, and I'm hoping to get that done this week. So, but so you've seen it go up and down. I always say it's like peaks and valleys, because when you had from the late '80s to about the mid '90s, it was just like, bam, you could get this game anywhere,
Right.
And FASA stopped operating in 2001, and it was just kind of like that, like, what? And I believe it was WizKids that took over the property after that, and they were just like, okay, great, well, we make clicky tech, I think it was Mage Knight, I think they did, and something like that. And they were like, we'll just take this and we'll port it over and we'll put it there, and it kind of went, because there's people that like it, don't get me wrong, I'm not trashing it, but by and large, the classic fans just kind of dug in, and I always jokingly call MechWarrior Dark Age the new Coke. Battletech, because once MechWarrior Dark Age went away, what did they bring back? Classic Battletech. So it's like Coke Classic and all that, and that's what happened there. So considering that we're doing the Iron Man today, how do you think that I'm going to fare in the mech that I've chosen, and how far do you think you guys will be able to go before you finally take me down?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm waiting to see if you can get into the assault range. That's
like the Rock'em Sock'em.
Up into the... I'm wondering if you get into the 80-ton range.
Oh man, that would be super cool.
where then you see the Zeus and a few... The Zeus 80 or 75?
Yeah, no, Zeus is 80. You got it right. And But see, I don't think that if anybody were to pick an 80-ton mech, they'd pick a Zeus. I think I'd be facing the Awesome at that point. And as Tex famously says, the only way to stop an Awesome is with another Awesome. So I'll probably lose that fight. But you know what? If I make it that far and I'm in the 80-tonner and I'm like, all right, I'm going up against the Awesome, I will fight, with all I got, and then he'll probably just, tear me apart, and that'll be the end of it. So, with the new miniatures that are coming out, have you gotten your stuff yet, or were you?
Oh yes, I got my Star Captain set.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if you were combined shipping or partial shipping.
I got it all at once.
And so you got it single shipping or?
I got it single shipping.
Oh, so you haven't got them yet?
I've got everything from. I didn't get anything in Wave 2.
I see. Okay,
all
you
my
got all the
stuff
Wave 1 stuff.
Yeah.
So you didn't get anything from Wave 2. So.
No.
You basically already got all your stuff. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Because I got Wave 1 and Wave 2 stuff, and I couldn't remember for the life of me if I'd picked single shipping or split shipping until I got the notification that my box had shipped, and I was like, oh, whew. Because, God, I'm telling you what, man, like, seeing everybody opening up their stuff, I'm just like...
I was the same way. Wait. My wife's telling me, be patient, you've been waiting so long.
So, what do you think of the miniature quality they got coming out versus, and I want to get specifically your opinion about the miniatures that they're putting out now. So, like the Mad Cat, for example, that they got here, versus the sort of fly-by-night, under-the-radar 3D printing guys, and that controversy that's been going on with that. So, what do you suppose, your opinion is on the quality of these guys versus that, and then just overall?
For me, I like this a lot better. Because it's like, I know there's the love of doing the 3D printing. I know the people that basically took MWO was designed to have those in place to where they could pull them out and print for their own usage.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love these. Because, to me, they speak Battletech.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was telling Taylor the other day, I don't know if you're a Futurama fan, if you've ever watched a lot of it, but I'm a massive Futurama fan. And and I'll get back to why that's relevant. I like to do anyway. So these guys are the perfect combination of that classic old school look and the MechWarrior Online. And I will be honest with you, the MechWarrior Online look, I hated that, man. I was just not a fan. It was all boxy, and it was all just like, yeah, get the car, give me the keys to the car, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus. And I hated it, but everybody that would talk to me about it would say, but these are more realistic looking. And I was full on grognard. I was like, I don't want realism in my stupid fantasy game of giant stompy robots in the far-flung dystopian future. But I feel like it's like that episode of Futurama where Bender has to get used to the new 1X robot, and he just wakes up after that little conversion therapy. I love the new 1X robot! That's how I feel about these guys. So when these guys came out, this is a marked departure from the way things used to look. Like, the kind of neat thing about doing this at home is I have all my stuff right here.
Instead of being on the road.
Yeah. It's like you take the old look, like this stuff right here, and then you put this guy next to it. It's so dramatically different, but at the same time, it's absolutely evocative of this stuff.
Yeah, because you can compare these versus the Ralpartha figurines, miniatures, and you can also compare them to the Iron with metal stuff. You can decide which set you like.
Yeah.
Which ones you want to play with, but they can all be played with interchangeably.
Well, that's another thing I love about it is they don't phase these things out, and you can use this, or you can use a Ralpartha, or you can use an Ironwood Metals one, and it's all good. But like the big thing about these guys that they have come out with recently is I noticed that the designers had a heavy slant toward making them look like the old school. Like, these guys did their homework. You got guys like, I always put them over, like, ask anybody. I put over Bishop Steiner, I put over Anthony Scroggins, I put over, all those guys. They were looking at these things and they were like, how can we do this and make an homage to the old, but still make it updated and modern for a new audience? And I think they just knocked it out of the park.
For sure. The only thing I thought was missing was to make them the true Omnis, to where you could actually interchange components.
Oh, well, have you heard Blaine Pardoe is actually doing that now? Have you heard about this?
I thought I Is that why he's creating that new company?
Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, what they're doing is they've started a United States-based company, as opposed to this stuff comes from China.
Right.
And that was one of the things we always had to deal with is, shipping, Chinese New Year, all that. But this is a United States-based company that's making all of the variant miniatures. So you're going to have like the Stormcrow A, for example, with the big, I think it's the A, with the big auto cannon on the side of it and the handful of medium lasers, and you'll have all these other things that have different variants on the Omnis. And so that's super exciting. And they have the same quality, Ryan Peterson just pasted up one of those and did a paint job on them, and oh man, it just looks fabulous. It looks just like the stuff that was coming from the Invasion Kickstarter boxes, except it has different weapon loadouts.
Right.
I can't wait to see what Blaine and them cook up.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think we're about to have a really good game. I look very forward to it, and I'm very excited to see what you're capable of, sir. So good luck to you.
The initiative was with the Locust pilot out of the gate as Hobbs threw the throttle forward on his 95-ton machine to wait while his gangly opponent approached. Hobbs knew he had no hope of matching the Locust's speed and had decided ahead of time that he would not even attempt to tactically maneuver, especially against an enemy that did not have the ability to hit him outside of 240 meters. He knew the Locust would have to come at him to make an attack, and that he only needed to keep his eye on the ball. With the PPC and autocannon's superior range, Hobbs made a warning shot against his incoming target, but was ultimately unsuccessful in this initial attempt. The initiative was still with the Locust pilot, and Hobbs put his plan of hurry up and wait into action, hoping to steady himself for future attack purposes as his opponent barreled toward him at breakneck speeds. Despite the Locust pilot being aware that he had to close with Hobbs to make any kind of shot, he protected his incoming attack vector by maneuvering his machine into defilade behind a nearby section of woods. Hobbs attempted another attack similar to his previous one, and the Locust pilot had finally made it within attack range himself, but neither of the pair could land a blow against the other despite their close proximity. The initiative stayed with the Locust pilot, and Hobbs decided to backpedal to widen his potential firing arcs while his opponent whipped around the woods he'd previously used for cover to make for the cover of a different wooded area nearer to Hobbs. The Locust pilot's tactics kept him safe once again, and Hobbs continued firing his autocannon and PPC to no avail. Fortune was with him, however, as the trees that had saved his opponent from being shot hindered his own and narrowly missed Hobbs, despite him being out in the open. This left the pressure on the Locust pilot to keep in front of the initiative, as he was now in close quarters against an enemy almost 4 times his own size. It was not to be, however, as what goes up must inevitably come down. The initiative pendulum swung back in the direction of Hobbs, and his opponent was now behind the 8-ball. He quickly turned his machine around and headed back for the safety of his previous wooded hideout, where he hoped his superior speed would keep him out of Hobbs' gun sights, if only for a moment. The ploy worked, as Hobbs gave chase but ultimately could not penetrate the heavy wooded area with his sensors, and as such, could make no attack on the Locust. The Locust pilot hoped this had allowed him to buy enough time to once again get in front of the initiative. The gamble paid off as Hobbs was again behind the initiative and decided that another backwards maneuver was his best course of action to have a better firing angle on his enemy. The Locust pilot engaged his mech's mighty speed to continue to harass and confound Hobbs, looking to make things as difficult for him as possible while still being able to continue to make an attack. He knew even a 95-ton mech would fall eventually if he could continue this game of cat and mouse for long enough. Another round of fire from both combatants went wide, leaving no one with first blood almost 3 minutes into this test of endurance, and the Locust pilot again under the pressure to keep his initiative momentum going. And keep it he would, as Hobbs was once again not favored by the initiative gods. His gut instinct was that slow and steady would win this race, as a calm pilot will often connect with many shots that a harried pilot would not, and he methodically backpedaled to force his opponent to run or gun once again. Blowing past a nearby forest, the Locust pilot continued to employ basic hit-and-run tactics, knowing that Hobbs could no longer back up if he continued to stay behind the initiative due to being at the edge of the battlefield, and he looked to press his foe into moving into a position of vulnerability if the initiative continued to remain as it so far had. Hobbs deftly turned his torso and caught the 20-ton scout squarely in the torso with his PPC, marking first blood as well as melting away armor and damaging his opponent's internal structure, and kept the Locust pilot's aim off-kilter, leaving his PPC unanswered. The Locust pilot kept his initiative momentum going, but with blood on the ground, Hobbs was in no mood to go anywhere. He steadied himself and left the onus of tactics on his opponent. The sudden shock of taking heavy damage from Hobbs left the Locust pilot's heart racing, and in that moment of confusion, he threw his machine forward in a daring maneuver, hoping to take advantage of the minimum range limitations of the weapons carried by the Banshee. He simultaneously prayed his speed would also keep him safe from its fists. Despite Hobbs' shots going wide, the Locust pilot's hands trembled at the sight of the Banshee's foreboding visage, and kept the Locust pilot's own barrage of medium and small lasers from connecting. Hobbs knew the time was now. He slammed his foot down on the Banshee's foot pedal and sent a monstrous kick toward his enemy, connecting with a thunderous clash of metal and internal components. The tiny leg crumpled under such a powerful display of force, and despite the Locust pilot having the same idea as his enemy, the 20-tonner's kick simply could not hope to affect the Banshee in any meaningful way. As Hobbs easily kept his machine upright, the Locust pilot ejected, knowing that his time was over, and Hobbs made his way into round 2. As his opponent entered the battlefield, Hobbs still found himself behind the initiative. He cautiously moved forward, knowing his new opponent did not have the same range hindrances as his previous one. The commando pilot played it safe as well, maneuvering his way into a patch of trees, looking to give himself some cover as he moved within firing range of the Banshee. His strategy was effective, as the wooded cover between the two provided ample defilade. Hobbs was unable to make an attack, and the commando pilot hoped he would be able to stay in front of the initiative. His hopes were granted, as Hobbs could not manage to gain the upper hand. However, he knew he had a winning strategy on his hands, and as such, Hobbs steadied himself instead of charging in, hoping to draw his enemy out and get him under the Banshee's guns. The The commando pilot continued to move in, but crested the rising hilltop nearest him in an attempt to make a break for more wooded cover, and managed to use his nimble 25-ton striker's speed to keep more dense forestry between he and his foe. Unable to make an attack, Hobbs patiently waited. This strategy worked out for Hobbs as the initiative finally swung back his way again. The commando pilot continued to look to the wooded area in front of him for cover instead of making a break out into the open. Hobbs continued to press his advantage and buried the hammer down on the Banshee, looking to get his target into the best effective range for his weapons. The commando pilot's aim was true as he scored away armor from the Banshee's right torso with his mech's large laser and peppered it with short-range missiles. Hobbs could not return the favor, despite his close proximity, owing to the commando's wise use of wooded cover. The initiative stayed with Hobbs at a pivotal moment, and the commando pilot did his best to employ his speed again to his advantage. As he moved out of the wooded cover he'd taken refuge behind, Hobbs threw back the throttle on the Banshee and calmly stepped backwards, training his guns on what he hoped would be easy prey. Despite the commando offering another barrage of missile and laser fire, scoring away leg armor from the Banshee, Hobbs used his mech's PPC to carve off the commando's right arm with surgical precision, robbing it of its main source of offensive capability. In spite of this, the commando pilot pressed on, looking to deal as much damage to the Banshee as he could before the repair and reload period between rounds. The commando pilot was once again in front of the initiative, but Hobbs knew the remainder of this fight would be short, as his enemy would have to close with him in order to make an attack as his predecessor had. He continued his backwards descent and was shocked to see the commando pilot make a beeline for him, closing into point-blank range. The commando pilot could only offer a small spread of missiles, and despite leaving a few pockmarks on the Banshee, Hobbs capitalized. Though his shots went wide, he was undaunted and reared back with a mighty fist, crashing into the cockpit of the commando and leaving it ruined, making his way into round 3.
Punch location. Headshot. Bye.
Yeah, okay, because for some reason I only have 6 armor in the head, so yeah, you took my head straight off.
Hobbs took his full 2 tons of repair after the damage his previous opponent had dealt him starting out against his new foe. The Javelin pilot blazed out from his initial starting point, while Hobbs looked to play the tactics of his previous successes on his third-round enemy, cautiously moving forward, looking to draw the Javelin pilot out as he struck the Javelin's 30-ton frame with his particle cannon almost immediately, while the Javelin was unable to return fire due to range. He ripped away armor from the lighter machine's torso, damaging its internal structure and knocking out one of its heat sinks. The Javelin pilot managed to recover with the initiative momentum, but Hobbs had no intention of overplaying his hand. He once again steadied himself and left the heavy thinking to his opponent. Not wanting to take another PPC blast to the chest, the Javelin pilot pressed onward and used a small patch of trees to give himself cover. Despite this, Hobbs managed to connect with his Banshee's autocannon and continued to work on the Javelin's damaged right torso, ripping away another heatsink and one of the Javelin's 4 medium lasers. Over the next 90 seconds, the Javelin pilot played a game of hide-and-seek as he looked to avoid another devastating blow, but it was a game that Hobbs refused to play, content in the knowledge that his enemy would have to make a move eventually if he wanted the opportunity to make an attack. The Javelin pilot wisely used his jump jets to make himself a more difficult target while also continuing to employ the heavy woods for cover. And though his PPC went wide, Hobbs struck the Javelin's cockpit with a slug from his autocannon. The autocannon report left him rattled, and as such, the Javelin pilot could not connect with any return fire. Hobbs saw no point in trying to match the Javelin's speed as he was behind the initiative yet again, and made further use of backward momentum to give himself a wider range of attack. The wily Javelin pilot blew out of the woods he'd used for cover and made sure to position himself between another wooded patch with the speed of his nimble scout to eventually flank the slower Banshee and find it in a place of vulnerability. Hobbs punched through the woods with his PPC and blew through the left arm of the Javelin like a hot knife through butter. It was a shot that would go unanswered as the Javelin pilot could not score any fire in return. With the Javelin reeling, Hobbs had no great compunction to make any kind of advancement one way or the other. The Javelin pilot threw the throttle forward and continued to attempt a flanking strategy to catch Hobbs off guard, but ultimately did not affect the 95-ton monster. The Javelin pilot was now in a position of needing to stay in front of the initiative in order to maintain his momentum. The Javelin pilot finally made his move, and Hobbs caught him in the torso with his particle cannon, leaving him shocked into missing with any return fire. The Javelin pilot had now lasted almost as long as the two previous combatants combined, and Hobbs was beyond ready for this fight to be over. Keeping in front of the initiative, he hoped that wherever his opponent moved, it would be his last maneuver. The Javelin pilot exited the woods, and Hobbs made a slow shift to once again be within point-blank range. He wanted nothing more than to end this duel now. Hobbs looked the enemy pilot dead in the face and screamed as he swung out with the Banshee's fists, connecting with furious anger and wrenching the cockpit clean off, advancing into round 4.
Punch location 6. That's a headshot. And I already
That
hit you in the
helps
head. So I decked him. I decked now 2 mechs with a headshot.
Very nice.
Hobbs took another 2 tons of armor repair as he prepared himself to face down his 4th opponent. The Panther carried with it a particle cannon of its own that could reach out beyond 500 meters, unlike one of his previous opponent's large laser cannons, and as such, Hobbs knew he could no longer rest on his laurels. The two barreled toward one another, both eager to begin the fighting. Hobbs still found himself behind the initiative, but he knew his new opponent did not have the speed capabilities of his previous foes. He threw himself forward and hoped to get within optimal range of his weapons for his initial attack. The Panther pilot lit a plume of fire and leapt up to the top of a nearby rise, and Hobbs pulled his crosshairs toward the 35-ton sniper, blasting away and connecting with his target with PPC and autocannon fire, turning torso armor into slag. This initial blast rocked the Panther, and as such, its pilot could only connect with 2 out of 4 short-range missiles and nothing else. That was all that was necessary, however, as one of the short-range missiles found a flaw in the Banshee's torso armor, penetrating the plates and cracking its engine shielding.
3. Got nervous there for a second. I'm like, uh-oh. Magic BB. Got it. Next. Oh, there is a Magic BB. Alright. Critical hits.
Okay.
1.
Upper is the black.
Okay, go ahead. So upper 1 engine.
For the first time, Hobbs was now in a position of vulnerability. As his heat spiked, he fell behind the initiative and sought to give himself distance from his foe. Despite the Panther's sensors showing the pilot his attack had given him an early advantage, he still proceeded cautiously against Hobbs. With no attacks to be made, Hobbs took this cooldown period to reorient himself and his strategies against what was now becoming a serious battle. It was the perfect time to get in front of the initiative, and Hobbs took the opportunity for all it could potentially be worth. As his enemy did his best to keep the woods between them, Hobbs slowly moved backward and looked to give his enemy another blessing from his main guns. Seeing the grim face of the Banshee so close temporarily shocked the Panther pilot into missing yet again with his mech's PPC, but he was able to connect with his short-range missiles. This did not affect the Banshee the same way as his last spread, however, and Hobbs fired back, connecting with his own PPC and adding his autocannon onto it, scoring armor away from the Panther's right leg and torso. With Hobbs being behind the initiative again, he sensed that it would not take much longer for the Panther to be put down if he continued to score hits, and he trudged his machine backwards, hoping to score more. The Panther pilot wisely pushed his throttle down, looking to keep some wooded cover between he and his foe, and he hoped it would be enough to keep Hobbs' aim from whittling away the dwindling armor the Panther had left. This gamble did not pay off, however, and Hobbs managed to shear the Panther's right leg away with his PPC, effectively ending the duel, while the Panther pilot could not connect with any return fire due to the heavy wooded cover, leaving Hobbs the victor of a short but intense duel as he headed off into round 5. After a repair and reload, Hobbs repositioned himself and the fight against his 5th round enemy was on. Both Hobbs and the Hermes pilot made a break for open terrain, looking to use their long-range weaponry on their respective approaches. Hobbs fired a warning shot to no effect, letting the Hermes pilot know he meant business. With Hobbs out in front of the initiative, the Hermes pilot charged forward, looking to bring the large laser cannons he carried on his unique variant into play. Hobbs wanted nothing more than to end this duel as quickly as possible and marched forward to bring his guns to bear. The Hermes pilot let a large laser fly, not wanting to overheat his machine, and connected while Hobbs was unable to respond in kind with his PPC. Hobbs was unable to keep his initiative momentum going, and he knew the nimble Hermes could easily land behind him if he wasn't careful. He maneuvered himself into a small patch of trees and hoped this action would be enough to keep that from becoming his fate. The Hermes pilot threw his speed into a flanking maneuver, knowing that if he were to stay out in front of the initiative, it would give him the advantage and allow him to make it into the rear arc of the Banshee. Turning the Banshee's torso, the Hermes pilot narrowly avoided Hobbs' PPC, and this evasion tactic caused the Hermes pilot to fire wide of the Banshee with a large laser cannon as well. The gamble did not pay off for the Hermes pilot, as the initiative favored Hobbs, and the Hermes pilot tried his best to continue to flank the heavier mech and use his speed to make himself a difficult target. Hobbs, however, moved into a point-blank position and hoped he could use his massive size advantage to his favor as he had in previous duels. Firing both large laser cannons in a near panic, the Hermes pilot connected with both, though he was horrified that this did not seem to affect the Banshee one way or another, and Hobbs could not land any effectual weapons fire himself. The pair lashed out with their respective feet, but a kick from Hobbs was far more devastating, and the Hermes pilot struggled to stay upright. Hobbs was now in an advantageous position, as his sensors told him the Hermes was running hot. Knowing this would slow its movement, he fell back to what he thought would be the best firing position, but his opponent still managed to make it into his rear arc despite his machine's movement being hampered by heat buildup. Hobbs resigned himself to his fate and hoped his substantial rear armor would be able to absorb the potential attack. The Hermes pilot fired only a single large laser into the rear torso of the Banshee, looking to cool down as he prepared to launch another kick. Hobbs made an unsuccessful attempt to swat at him with the Banshee's fist. However, it caused the Hermes pilot to be forced to duck, lest he suffer the fate of previous duelists, and as such, his kick attempt was neutered. The Tiger now had the Hermes trapped as he retook the initiative. The Hermes pilot abandoned his flanking strategy and made all speed to make an escape from the Banshee. As he cut away, Hobbs circled his prey and kept his weapons within their optimal ranges for the best possible attack vector. The Hermes pilot offered up a large laser to burn armor away from the Banshee's torso, but it was simply not enough. Hobbs sliced through the remainder of the Hermes' right leg with his particle cannon, sending it to the dirt and causing its pilot to eject.
On the front, TPC. Right leg, baby. That's what I wanted to hit.
Alright, so you blew the leg off.
With this, Hobbs had lasted almost 20 minutes and advanced on into round 6. After facing his previous opponent's large lasers, Hobbs took 2 tons of armor repair as he prepared to face down the sturdy Vindicator. Taking up a defensive position early on, the Vindicator pilot hoped to draw Hobbs onto the other side of the battlefield from where he had spent the majority of the fighting. Hobbs obliged, pushing out from behind the wooded cover where he'd destroyed his previous opponent. The Vindicator pilot immediately sent a particle cannon blast into the narrow cockpit area of the Banshee, leaving Hobbs blinded by blistering aquamarine light.
You see to the head.
Hobbs quickly regained his composure, however, and carved a hole in the Vindicator's left arm with his own PPC. As Hobbs kept his initiative momentum, the Vindicator pilot retreated to a dense patch of woods, and Hobbs advanced, reasoning that if he were to go down, he would go down fighting. The Vindicator pilot continued his assault, landing another particle cannon blow, melting precious armor away from the Banshee's torso, and Hobbs returned the favor with his own. The imposing figure of the Banshee kept the Vindicator pilot locked in place, as he saw no advantage in leaving his wooded refuge. Hobbs seized the advantage and plowed forward, hoping for another victory stemming from size over style. The Vindicator pilot would not make it easy on him, however, and landed both his small and medium lasers as well as his particle cannon against the Banshee, despite being within the larger weapon's minimum range. The unexpectedly ferocious barrage threw Hobbs off kilter, causing his own PPC to hit the dirt. Despite the Vindicator pilot's best attempts to further throw Hobbs off with a kick, Hobbs smashed both the Banshee's mighty fists into the Vindicator's 45-ton frame, returning the favor from earlier by clobbering it upside the head and destroying its medium laser.
There's a headshot. Crits. Good for 1 crit.
Alright, that's my medium laser actually.
Hobbs backed slowly away from his foe so as not to allow for another rear attack, but the Vindicator pilot was almost able to do it despite Hobbs' best efforts. In a flanking maneuver, he blitzed past Hobbs before he could react, but fortune smiled on Hobbs as he watched another PPC bolt fly past him, making the Vindicator's small laser burning away torso armor seem almost like a blessing. The combatants took a breather, and once they'd gotten their composure, Hobbs was again in front of the initiative. With the Vindicator pilot having nowhere to go, he remained steady and dared Hobbs to come for him. Hobbs obliged and burned a hole through the Vindicator's central torso that left a plume of smoke trailing from the gaping hole, but did not damage the fusion engine or gyroscope contained therein. A deadly dance played out between the two punch-drunk foes, but it was Hobbs who would set the end in motion by finally critically damaging the Vindicator's gyroscope with an autocannon shell and sending it crashing to the dirt.
Crits. Good for 2 crits.
Alright.
First one's going upper 6 gyro.
Upon the Vindicator pilot successfully standing his machine upright, the two pilots decided they would keep swinging until they dropped, or their enemy did. In a hail of particle cannon, missile, and autocannon fire, the two dueled back and forth, neither willing to give their enemy quarter and requesting none. The contest of wills was now down to whomever could land the best shot first, and ultimately it would be Hobbs that would outlast the Vindicator pilot. However, he would pay for the victory with a heavy toll in terms of armor destroyed as he headed into round 7. The duel with the Vindicator pilot left Hobbs battered, and he was not sure if even a full 2 tons of armor repair would be enough to carry him to the end of a duel with a hunchback. With his opponent entering the field so closely, Hobbs scored a crucial victory in getting out in front of the initiative. The hunchback pilot was eager to give Hobbs a taste of that sweet chin music from his massive autocannon, and Hobbs had only one option: run. Moving to keep himself out of the hunchback's firing range, he turned his torso to give himself an avenue of attack as he retreated, but his single autocannon report was ultimately unsuccessful. Staying out in front of the initiative was now life or death, and Hobbs managed to do it again, as the Hunchback pilot splashed down in a nearby lake to continue to attempt to get his autocannon into range. Hobbs desperately continued his backwards movements, hoping to whittle the Hunchback down before it could accomplish its goal. His initiative victory was wasted yet again, however, as his nerves caused his particle cannon to fire wide. Shockingly, Hobbs kept his initiative dreams alive and hoped the Hunchback pilot would be greatly slowed while trying to navigate the waves it made as it trudged through the lake. These hopes were dashed, however, as the Hunchback pilot skillfully maneuvered his way across the lake and emerged from the other side, now with a clear path to making a break toward the Banshee. Hobbs felt his time growing short as he continued to move away from the Hunchback's autocannon, though he was finally able to blast the 50-ton brawler in the chest with his PPC. As the initiative pendulum finally swung away from Hobbs, he felt as if he had no choice but to retreat and fire. As he continued to make his way backwards, the Hunchback pilot knew that his opportunity was growing ever closer. He blitzed the 50-tonner forward, and this maneuver put him only a hair away from being able to seize that opportunity. Hobbs managed to score both his PPC and autocannon against the incoming target, but was unfortunately not able to continue to damage the central torso as he previously had, instead scoring away armor from the Hunchback's left arm and right torso. Hobbs thankfully retook the initiative, but it was too little, too late. The Hunchback pilot continued to throttle toward him at all speed, itching to have the sound of his cannon fill the air, and Hobbs knew that a flanking maneuver could not be successful in avoiding this eventuality. He would not make it easy on his enemy, however, and hoped for a lucky shot that would put the Hunchback out of commission before it had the opportunity to get in close. The pilot triggered his massive autocannon despite being at maximum effective range, if for no other reason than to let Hobbs know his time was coming. Hobbs triggered his own autocannon again, coupled with the Banshee's PPC, and a glimmer of hope presented itself. As the autocannon was unable to connect, the PPC scored more armor away from the Hunchback's central torso, and Hobbs knew if he could put one more shot in the same location, the opportunity to stop the Hunchback was, at the very least, possible. Hobbs made his way backward again, knowing it would be his last opportunity to do so, and prepared to make his final stand. With the Hunchback pilot moving in but simultaneously playing it safe due to his heavily damaged torso, Hobbs looked to lay down the hate. Hope soon turned to frustration, though, as he could not make a connection with his PPC, and his lower-class autocannon scored an ineffectual hit against the Hunchback's arm. The fact that his opponent's return report also came up dry seemed little consolation. Thus began the Showcase Showdown. Switching gears as his initiative momentum was not there, Hobbs made a break for wooded cover. He looked to flank the woods and get out into a better position of maneuverability. The Hunchback pilot blazed his machine in and lined up his crosshairs, with his third autocannon shell finally finding home on the Banshee.
Okay. Location now.
Oh my god, it's a headshot. Holy sh**.
Goodbye.
Very good, sir.
With the Banshee having lasted almost a half hour on the battlefield, the challenge came to a close with Hobbs scoring 6 kills before destruction. And this leaves us at the segment of the show we like to call After the Action.
Alright everybody, it's after the action time. You know how it is, you know how we do. I feel like it's kind of becoming somewhat of a theme, isn't it? That it's your birthday tomorrow, and we just did an episode where we had another guy's birthday, so, you know, I think that's a pretty good thing to do on Battlebound. So, okay.
I'm cool with that.
This is kind of an interesting scenario. We did the Iron Man challenge, but this time we did it right, so you can take that all the way to the bank. We did each weight, and I got up to 50 tons. So ended up with the Hunchback with that epic headshot over there. So usually it's supposed to be you getting birthday shots, not you. So, all right, so I'm gonna hear from you guys first. So how do you think that played out? What do you think of the BNC3E Banshee, now that it downed, 6, and had a real shot at taking out a 7.
You go first.
At first, I didn't know what to expect, but it actually held its weight. It took down 6, as you said. It had the 7th on the ropes. It took down at least 2 with headshots just from punching the heads off.
Oh yeah, 2, bing bang boom. And your Panther gave it that engine shot real early.
Oh, yeah.
Round 4 had that lucky BB with the SRM going into the center torso there and hitting the engine. Still managed to keep up with those 16 heat sinks and then take out the Hermes and then the Vindicator with the gunslinger action where he basically just stood right here
Stood
and
there and
blew each other
corralled that stuff.
straight to hell. Jeff, what do you think? Of the game, the way it is supposed to be played, but not only that, but the Banshee, the thing that everybody hates. It's still such a bad bag.
I mean, you had long range weapons, and a lot of times you could reach out to do shots that your opponents couldn't. I mean, I tried to take the best I could with my 2 selections with large lasers, but it's still. I mean, all that armor. I mean, it's solid mech.
That's what I keep saying. For 1422 battle value, I was able to get an upgraded 3-4 pilot and still be under 2,000. And it's got enough heat sinks that it can throw all those without the engine. It throw all those weapons out every turn on the run, no problem. And 2 of its 3 weapons are max range 18, which for the era, the only thing that beats that is LRMs. That's the only thing that outclasses it. And I liked this because all of the pilots were what your average gunner would be in the era. 4 gunnery, 5 piloting, and you might get lucky and see 1, 3, 4, which is what the Banshee was. And I think a lot of people discount it because they're just like, oh, well, it's not a lumbering weapons factory. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not the BNC3S with, what, 2 PPCs, AC-10, 4 medium lasers, whatever the hell else it has. Built like a Mack truck. This thing is still pretty solid. It can go toe to toe with any of the fan favorites like the Marauder, the Warhammer, the Thunderbolt. Those things can't shoot all those guns. But this thing is always just slow and steady. Wins the race. 15, 15, 15 until it's enough to kill you.
The Banshee is a mech that is designed to be able to take pot shots from a distance, but it's real. Because when it gets in close.
Oh, sure.
When it can get in close, fire the PPC just in case it hits for that extra 10 within its minimum, and then punch the absolute daylights out of you.
Oh, yeah. Nobody wants to box with a Banshee. I proved that twice.
It's got the staying power because of the armor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it can soak up the damage from what actually does hit. And I think this duel over here was an anomaly because we were both just standing still going, come on, somebody die.
Yeah.
But the round we were running around shooting, not everything hit all the time. So it's got the armor, it can soak that up. And even though I was getting the repairs, every so often, like to be able to take it that far, I still think it speaks to the impressiveness of. Now, what you just said is true. This is a fire support mech. This isn't supposed to be a brawler, get up there and duke it out with the likes of guys like the Atlas or
No.
the King Crab or anything like that. This isn't what that is. But for somebody to hang back and be like, you don't like that guy? Okay, boss, I'll shoot that guy. 15 damage.
Exactly.
Boom. Okay. And especially when you're already piling damage on it, and it's this big chonker that nobody wants to get up close to, because otherwise it's a 19-point kick, or 2 bam, bam, 20-point fists.
Yeah.
I actually finally got the 20 points on you.
Oh, yeah.
And the Vindicator, I blasted you for 20 there. So that was pretty, and that was what.
I was like, notice he didn't get close again.
Yeah, no.
That was it. It's like, we don't want that. We don't want that.
And in fact, the kick is what allowed me to put the Hermes 2 out of action so damn fast.
Yeah.
Kicked it, got internal and left it with 5 damage, and then the PPC tore it off.
Yeah.
And you were like, nope, I'm done, and just kill it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, enough to demoralize the pilot there. So, and on top of that, lore-wise, having a mech in 3025 was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like you didn't want to get dispossessed, so even if you had a Banshee, you had a Banshee. and like that was enough. That'd keep you your land and your holdings and your title and all that crapola.
I like it this way. I mean, this is the right way. I prefer it over our attempt, the last time.
I actually enjoy this one. I think they each have their merits, because the other one kind of is more of a expedient game. Pick a weight class, go. Pick one from the weight class, go. This one, you have to think a little bit more and try to figure out which one of each weight is going to be the most effective against what I'm about to go up against.
No.
And, yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things I noticed is, at the very beginning, you were focusing on the large lasers, you're going for the most damage you could, and then because with the light max there wasn't much we could do. And then as we moved up into the 30s and the 35s, that's where the PPCs started coming in, where we could start matching up a little bit more, until eventually we got to the 50 where the AC-20 comes into play.
See, I figured that the Vindicator was going to do the most damage, and that was what left me vulnerable enough that well, I guess it wouldn't have mattered because you hit me in the head with that AC-20.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered either way.
But like, even if you'd hit me anywhere else, I was internal. If you'd hit any location, it would have been bad juju for me with that AC-20. Whereas a fresh Banshee could have taken it, but not in that particular condition. I couldn't have done it. So, and also that was good thinking outside of the box there with the large laser variants of the particular mechs, just to say, okay, well, you get this much damage repaired every round. So let me see if I can't figure out a way to make it so that, I'm putting a ton of armor out of you every other time I shoot you. So what do you guys think of the board? The board, for the folks at home, what I did was I tried to recreate as close as I could anyway, the old classic Battletech map sheets of the 1980s and 1990s where, you got two map boards separated down the middle here, and you got your classic, couple of hills, some water, and some trees, and then on the other side you have open flats with some, woods to hide out in.
I enjoyed it.
It wasn't too sparse for you?
No.
I noticed I stayed on this side of the map for
most of it.
the majority of the game.
You did, because you had the range to be able to try to pick the lighter mechs off as they had to make their way up to you, because they didn't have the range you did.
Right.
So, again, working to the strengths of the Banshee to keep yourself in longer.
But anyway,
For
yeah,
sure.
this was a lot of time. This was
Yeah.
a lot of fun, so I had a great time. I hope you guys did.
Oh yeah, I totally enjoyed it.
Definitely.
So was it a good birthday shots?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Alright.
Alright, Battletech fans, that concludes our little mini episode of Battlebound. We sure hope you enjoyed watching as much as we enjoyed playing for you. We still can't travel right now because there's still a lot of crazy stuff going on out in the world, but we're going to do our level best to bring you some of the cool content that you are used to seeing here on the channel. So hit that subscribe bell down there and subscribe to all posts so you can find out exactly where Battlebound's going to turn up next. So we hope you enjoyed our little in-house shenanigans today. We had a great time here for Eric Myers' birthday, one of our OG patrons. We're going to see you next time out on the space lanes on Battlebound!